Hello, welcome to part 2 of my Nick Drake book walkthrough, look at, whatever. While I was gone there for a second, I found the advert that I was referring to that used that photograph, and it was in Melody Maker, February 1973, I think, 1972. I can't see, my eyes can't see that. Anyway, yes, I'm just going to read this last bit. Excuse me if you don't like bad language, but I think it's relevant. Because quite simply, we believe that Nick Drake, I'm going to hold it up there, it's probably better. Nick Drake is a great talent. His first two albums haven't sold a shit. But if we carry on releasing them, then maybe one day somebody authoritative will stop, listen properly and agree with us. Then maybe a lot more people will get to hear Nick Drake's incredible songs and guitar playing, and maybe they'll buy a lot of his albums and fulfill our faith in Nick's promise. Then we'll have done our job. That was David Sanderson, Ireland's press officer. Yeah, so people were feeling a lot of frustration, none more so than Nick. So here we have left him at Keith Morris's table. Let's move on. So obviously thought this was a good theme because it just sorry about the light reflection and everything. I can't do a lot about that. Not really going to get to see that because they're very dark. Should I go in a bit closer? Beautiful, beautiful photographs. So these are the Bryter Layter sessions, which is the second album. He was still pretty enthusiastic at this point. Okay, so his first album hadn't done that as well as he'd hoped, but this one was really going to, wasn't it? You can see that he's still together, he's still engaged, she's still wanting the photo shoot to work out well, he's wanting to promote his album, he's smirking there, it's still reasonably all good for Nick at this point. This is the house. He'd moved to London and he was living in the bottom floor of this house in Haverstock Hill in London, and there he is. I love this picture because you can just see him in the window of this house, which does not exist anymore. For fans who want to go on pilgrimage, there is nothing there except for a modern block because it was knocked down. So you can probably tell that the house wasn't in terribly good repair when Nick was living in it. But still, there's a happiness there. Keith Morris commented that these sessions were not grim, they were not miserable. Nick was having quite a good time. Okay, so he's sitting in his window there, but I think, again, that was the image he liked to conjure up, you know, the great thinking Nick doing something thinky. Yeah, you know, he was having fun. These neighbours washing in the garden, he's smiling. Ducking underneath the washing, he's smiling. You know? Times were not bad. They were about to become bad, but they were not yet bad. I love this house. It's just fabulous. And there we've got Nick sitting in the garden playing his guitar, looking serious, but just beautiful. Very much of its time. Lovely English house in a state of disrepair, which kind of appeals to me. Have I missed a page out? We can't do all of them. Oh, they're just lots of colour ones. And they're probably a bit small to see. The colour ones are unusual and probably didn't really serve Nick's purpose as much because he liked to be seen in a certain... He wore black and white continually. I think he liked to be seen in a certain way. But it's interesting for us to see Nick in colour for a change. And look! He's happy. I mean, he's not, you know, bursting out into laughter or anything, but he's not, it hasn't taken him down yet, the despair. He's okay in these photos, or at least he's putting a good show on for Keith Morris, the photographer, who took some absolutely beautiful shots in this session. Yeah, Nick was, you know, he was prepared to try different things. He wasn't just standing there given up. He was engaged. Yeah, let's try this one. Coming up through the passageway. I'm sure half of you have fallen in love with him by now, because most people do. But I'm in love with his whole musical everything, rather than the physicality of him. But you can't deny that he was extremely beautiful. There he is. That was set up, I think, maybe again in Hampstead, I can't remember. Keith Morris again juxtaposing Nick sitting, playing, and somebody, and life going by. Who is she? Is she dead now? I wonder. Did she even know Nick was there? And there was a series that were meant to be on the cover of Bryter Layter that were rejected for the hideous thing that was put on there. Please have a look at the cover of Bryter Layter and you'll see what I mean. He was meant to be sitting under the tree with his guitar and a heavy book to denote his seriousness and his learned qualities. This was no lightweight artist. This was a great thinker. But he's smiling, look. I think he probably just gets caught off guard because mostly he wants to look like that. But sometimes Keith Morris catches him with a grin. Maybe he doesn't like the way he looks when he smiles. Yeah, maybe that's it. I don't know. We don't know because we don't know enough about him. And then under the tree, this one kind of the shape of things to come, really. He's turned his back. I don't know whether that was his idea or Keith Morris's idea or whether it was just let's try this. I don't know. There's so much we don't know, and that's what's created Nick's great enigma, because there's so much we just don't know. And again, lovely, lovely shot of Nick turned away. It's beautiful. Well, it is to me anyway. Hopefully it is to you. So then there was, I think those ones with the book and the tree and the guitar were meant to be the front cover, and these were maybe for the back cover. Nick's looking a little bit more dishevelled in these shots, isn't he? Doesn't quite look as dapper as he did in the other ones. Maybe he was having a bad day. Or maybe he just didn't like being... I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to be there either, but it was to make that contrast of this is an urban album, I think. And also, I think, just trying different things. Keith Morris just being inventive, see what would work. But I don't get the impression that Nick was overjoyed with these, but I don't know. Who knows? More colour. Lovely colour. Let's have a look at him in colour. And those long hands with the short sleeves. I'll put some links under the video so that you can check out the video I'm talking about and see whether you think it's him at the music festival. I don't know whether he would like that one or not. I think it's partly enigmatic but partly smirky. It's also really lovely, but I think Keith Morris did something to the contrast and so forth on these, bleached them out to make them look less dominant. I don't know. I have read about it, but I'm not going to be able to tell you in great detail because I'm not a photographer. But the idea obviously was for Nick to be in the foreground and not for the industrial setting to be too much in the way. Still happy chap, but I have to say he does look a bit more dishevelled. Things weren't going terribly well for him at that house that he was living in. I think he was starting to get more withdrawn at this stage. Even though he still had hopes for the album that was coming out, I don't think he was doing terribly well. Smoking a lot of dope. Apparently, I don't know, apparently from various sources he was just going further and further within himself. It wasn't working out for him well in London, and he'd kind of cut off contact with his parents and family. You'll recognise that from my painting that I adapted to my own thing. You can see that it's not really very similar, except for the basis of Nick. And I love that. That's why I made my painting of it. But this one, he looks a bit kind of, I don't know, maybe it's hard in reading things into these things that might be nothing to read into them really, but he doesn't look quite so tidy together, engaged, or maybe that was just a moment. Although, yeah, difficult to feel, easy to feel relaxed in that kind of beautiful setting. Fantastic photograph. Not so much so in that industrial one. Now he was happy here because he was in his element with an instrument. And we've got more colour. So yeah, he was pleased with the being shown in wherever that was with the piano. So, and then I'm aware of time getting on. Sorry, I just feel like I have to go back and compare that again just to show you. Just quickly. No, I can't, can I? God, these blooming gloves. Yeah, just to show you the difference. Although I've used the basis of Nick, it's a very, very different picture to the basic. There, mine is quite different. Just in case you thought I was doing a direct rip of it, which would be pointless. I used it as my basis. Anyway, so yeah, let's move on to Pink Moon. So now, Bryter Layter didn't sell. It sold even less than the first album. Nick was really not in a good way. He had left London, gone back to Tamworth in Arden, I think, but this time to be with his parents because he couldn't cope living on his own anymore. But this is taken in Hampstead Heath, as was the first picture I showed you with him walking away. Let's just see what Keith Morris says here. He basically just sat or stood and I ran round. Eventually I ran out of things to say. I just clicked. It was like doing a still life. Only there's not a great deal of life in it. Again, Keith Morris has tried to do that same juxtaposition of Nick sitting or standing and the world going by. Only this time, what we get to see is the fact that Nick is not a well man. All his disappointment, his disillusionment, his anger turned inwards, his guilt, his for giving up Cambridge to do music, everything has just come crashing in on this young man who was promised that he was going to be big, and he can't sell records. Partly because he couldn't get it together to do anything about it in the promotional department, but mostly because the world wasn't ready for him. So there he sits, hunched up and extremely vacant looking. So again, the similar kind of shot Keith Morris has tried to set up there with somebody walking by and Nick just standing. Only the effect, rather than being interesting, like the 5 leaves left, one against the wall with the people running past and so forth, this just looks desperately sad. He's not even... He's just away. He's not even trying to look enigmatic. He's gone. He's gone thinking something we will never know. Probably thinking, is any point me doing this? Because nobody buys my stuff anyway. Now this is what I was trying to explain earlier. When Nick was going down the hill, he was doing that to come back up it, but the resulting picture was meant to look kind of like, you know, I'm coming up the hill high kind of thing. But it just ends up looking like sad Nick walking towards camera, a bit dishevelled. There was only so much Keith Morris could do at this stage, you know, he did try. And what he got was incredibly powerful. It just wasn't very pleasant or easy to look at, especially for the people who cared about him. And Nick did have a lot of people who cared about him. He was, as John Martin said, a very lovable person. But by this stage, he just was... Yeah, he was still there. There's a bit of a smile going on there. Look. But generally, something of the Jim Morrison about him here. He looks suspicious to me. He looks slightly shifty, like, what are you doing? I mean, that could have been a split second catching that expression fleeting across his face, but he does not look comfortable with the process at all. And this one is just awful. It's beautiful, because I find a great deal of beauty in that. Beautiful stillness. But you go closer to him and you see his pain, his loss. Where is he? Where is that man? Very difficult. You know, he was still trying there. Looking very dishevelled, but trying. And then, oh God. The anguish in there, the resentment, everything. Just caught for a fraction of a second. How could you promote an album with this? Yeah, with that, perhaps, although he's looking quite gaunt and different than he did before, but with this, that's just a portrait of a very unhappy, very unwell, destroyed young man. And he was still trying. Look, here I am looking into the distance, being enigmatic, but he's thin, his coat's all ragged, his hair's all, I don't know, there's this general air of total dejected and dishevelment about him somehow, and behind it you can read that there's, you know, there's anger there, as well as just complete confusion. What am I doing? What's going on? Very, very difficult to look at, but also they're great windows into this time of his life. And another 4 there. I'm going to have to shut up again in a minute because we're going to run out of video. I hope somebody's interested in this. This is the last one. Oh God, yeah. Picture 1,000 words, etc. This is a photo shoot to promote the album Pink Moon. Beautiful, dark, deeply affecting album. So he's almost like the face of the moon with all these fleeting things going over it. Just sort of hollow, angry, bitter, lost. What am I doing? Just what am I doing? What's the point, I think? What's the point in doing this, Keith? Because no one's going to buy my record anyway. Just end. There's Keith Morris, a photographer who is sadly passed away in a diving accident. And what a beautiful book, eh? Not all sad. Just a running man on the back from the 5 leaves left shoot. Let's end with the front piece again. Happier times. There. 2 sides. I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed making it. Please go out and find about Nick if you can, if you want to, or maybe you just enjoyed looking at some pictures of a lovely man. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Lots of love, and yeah, bye.